thank you all very much for joining us today. We are thrilled to be able to bring a little bit of information about virtual coaching and specifically how we can support teachers as we move into somewhat uncertain times. And as we find that new normal that we're all talking about, what does that look like? Are we going to be back face-to-face, hybrid, blended, whatever it might be? We know that teachers still need good professional development and opportunities for learning over time. And so the three of us have been working on virtual coaching for several years now, and COVID has somewhat shined a light on that. And we're excited to be able to share some of our findings with you and some encouraging futuristic thoughts about what we think the future of professional development and specifically virtual coaching will look like. So my name is Amber Rowland. I am an assistant research professor at the University of Kansas for the Center for Research on Learning. My colleagues here are...
My name is Suzanne Myers, and I'm an associate researcher at the Center for Research on Learning.
And I'm Marty Alford. I'm a lecturer and program associate in the Department of Special Education. I direct the high incidence practicum program. So I work with students who want to become special educators.
What we wanted to do today was briefly share with you a model that we've been working on to support virtual coaching. We understand a lot of people are doing virtual coaching, but we don't know that they actually have a model that's built specifically for this medium. It's unique, it's different from face-to-face coaching. And we have had the opportunity to study that and then put that into practice. So we'll share some details here in a minute, but overarching all of this is our belief that a well-supported teacher is needed for every student virtually everywhere. So whether it's isolation geographically or doesn't have the capacity in the current climate in an urban school district versus rural, which would be geographic isolation, we believe that everyone has a right to professional learning, no matter how long they've been teaching, 3 years, 30 years, whatever it might be. There's an opportunity to grow. And we've found that a lot of folks, teachers and coaches, and even some administrators are hungry for this opportunity to have a virtual coach.
Our model is all about personalized professional development. So we'd like for you to take just a moment to think about these 3 questions. Sometimes people ask me, if money were no object, where would you go on vacation? So there might be a lot of obstacles to your best case scenario professional development, but take just a minute and answer these 3 questions about the best case scenario professional development for you in your setting where you work in the coming year.
So this model really was born out of a practical need, and that practical need was realized when we entered into a partnership with the Department of Education to support implementation of evidence-based practices in literacy as part of their Striving Readers federal grant, which here in Kansas we call the Literacy Network of Kansas, or LINC. A great deal of that capacity building involved high quality professional development. Getting to these locations became one of the challenges that we were thinking through. And we were also thinking through and very mindful about the fact that sit and get one and done professional development really was ineffective most of the time. And so because of that, the vector process was born. It was developed to be entirely virtual in order to ensure that our most isolated teachers could receive and participate in one-on-one instructional coaching with a skilled partner coach, no matter where they were, no matter what grade level they taught in. And that was really important to us. What we found was that while we anticipated our teachers in the most rural areas of our state to be requesting this and in need of this kind of one-on-one virtual coaching, we found that educators in all schools, in all districts, can be isolated. And sometimes in some of our larger districts, they either needed more coaches, and so we became supplemental to the coaching that they already had so that they could have a better coach to coachee ratio, or they needed support for their coaches because being a coach in their buildings was a lonely job and they were isolated in that way and needed a partner coach to help them, support them in thinking through the decisions that they were making with their coachees. One example that we like to think about when we think about the importance of that one-on-one support locally in a rural district is an example of a high school English teacher who had been tasked with implementing project-based learning in her classroom. And she had had lots of professional development on how to implement project-based learning, lots of professional development on what it was, but really as a veteran teacher who was a very skilled English teacher and did her job very well, had a really hard time figuring out how to merge what she knew to be good English teaching with what she thought might be good project-based learning. And so our coach, our virtual coach, was able to work one-on-one with her to first better understand the definition of project-based learning that her administrative team was communicating with the staff, and then figure out ways to embed project-based learning into her high school English classroom in a way that made sense to her and that also met the expectations of her building and district administration.
Through this journey of trying to support virtual coaching and help teachers, we know that three things have to be in place. And the first one is a partnership approach. And that's the understanding that we're coming to this together as equals. There's no power struggle here. No one is above anyone else, but rather, how can we come together, talk about your environment as an educator or coach, and what you might want to work on or work towards as far as a goal or improvement or just advancing your own practice. And so partnership is a key piece as well. We have protocols in place, and these protocols follow those 6 phases, and it helps support the coach, the virtual coach, through the questioning and activities and conversations that need to take place in order to progress through the phases in order to make change in practice. And lastly, we have to talk about the platforms. So these are the big 3 things that are needed for virtual coaching, and platforms is definitely a big piece. And so thus far we've used multiple platforms, and we've landed on Zoom for the virtual coaching aspect. And then we've explored Torch and Edthena and GoReact when it comes to video-based observations, because we know, because it is totally virtual, coaches still need the opportunity to see teachers and coaches in practice so that they can offer shared experiences and offer feedback. And so those platforms allow us to take recordings and then post them on the web so that we can have a shared observation.
These are some of the testimonials that we've received from coachees from this past year. And as you can see, there are some themes that emerge when we start to look at feedback from people who have participated in this coaching model, the virtual coaching model with us. And some of those themes are in bold print here. So you can see flexibility, this idea of talking more candidly or high level of trust, a focus and efficiency of meetings, meeting time, and then personalization toward goals that the coachees really want to work on.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about the model we developed and what each of these phases mean. And I'm going to do that by telling you a story about a coach that I worked with a few years ago. But even though this story is about a coach, the goal that the coach set would fit teachers or administrators. A number of years ago, I was working with a coach from Othello, Washington. Her name was Jen. And she and I had watched her coaching videos, and we were having a conversation about what we were seeing. And she said, "Did you notice how much of the time I'm doing the talking?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And she said, "Well, why aren't they talking more? Why aren't my teachers talking more?" And so when we agreed on our perspective, it was clear that her most pressing need was to get her teachers to talk more. And so I said, "Well, you really have no control over what anybody else does, but you can control how you set up the conversation so that the teacher is invited to speak more." And so she set a goal of talking less and the teacher talking more. And so, okay, how are we going to do that? So we had to determine a strategy. And Jen and I decided that she would work hard at developing some open-ended questions, and she would follow the same process every time she asked a question. She would ask a question, she would wait for the response. And this was particularly hard for Jen because she wasn't really good with silence. So she had to learn to wait. And then after the response, she listened carefully so that she could paraphrase what the teacher said. And that really, really helped her. It helped build a relationship with the teacher. It also moved her toward her goal. And so in operationalizing performance in this stage, she just had to follow the protocol in every conversation and then go back and track her progress by looking at the videos and actually measuring how much coach talk versus how much teacher talk there was. And then, become either more comfortable with her protocols or decide that she wanted to change things up a little bit. And then finally, in the end, refine and recommit is about, did we reach the goal? And it's important in this process to remember that none of this is linear. Change is messy. And so sometimes we would have conversations about maybe the strategy is not working. Maybe we need to try something else. Or this works with one teacher, but not with another one. And sometimes Jen would forget and she would get really excited about what they were talking about, and she would be the one talking too much. So there's always an opportunity to go back and revisit each one of these phases. Sometimes we have to go back and examine influence or verify perspective. But we found that the phases of the vector process are very effective when virtual coaching.
So we're excited to share that we have quite a few projects and research studies in the hopper with a focus on one-on-one coaching, but we're also focusing on some team-based coaching, all of which is virtual. And we're just trying to explore what it is that helps virtual coaching to be successful and to better refine the model that we've developed in Vector, and also to enhance the protocols and components that we use for coaches to better support their work. So lots in the hopper, lots of things going on. We have some manuscripts and a book that's in progress. So we hope to share those with the world soon.
So this is our contact information, and we just ask that if you have any questions or want further information about the Vector virtual coaching model, feel free to reach out to us directly and we will be happy to answer any of your questions.